And so for me, the Village Market was all about funneling our dollars to Black enterprises. But at the end of that, Black enterprises, Black entrepreneurs, Black small business owners understand that there's a collective wealth building model that we're building. We're not funneling dollars to you just so you can be a single-minded multimillionaire.
From Two Comma Media, it's Give 'em the Business, a show about Black entrepreneurs and business leaders sharing their stories of adversity and success. I'm Troy Evans, and on today's show, my guest is Dr. LaKeysha Hallmon, founder of The Village Retail. Dr. LaKeysha Hallmon is on a mission to build legacy through community. As the founder of The Village Retail and author of No One is Self-Made, she's become a leading voice in economic empowerment and a champion for Black-owned businesses across the country. Her work is bold, visionary, and deeply rooted in the belief that success is not a solo act. It's a collective journey. But that's just the latest chapter of her story. The journey began much earlier in a small town in the Mississippi Delta, where she witnessed the determination of her grandmother that sparked a lifelong commitment to creating space for Black entrepreneurs to rise together.
Seeing my grandmother be a seamstress in the Mississippi Delta, she worked from her home. Often her kitchen, between watching Young and the Restless, she was making wedding gowns, choir robes, quilts for people in the community. But as a young girl, I didn't really understand that my grandmother was an entrepreneur. I just knew from being able to observe her that she really loved what she did. I would sit in awe and see her, putting out patterns, teaching me to read patterns, her laying everything out across her bed. I was amazed that fabric was going to turn into a suit or a dress and things like that. And I got to observe from her having a great deal of pride in every single thing that she did. I also got to observe her being able to almost speak into existence what she was going to make. And so I would be so inquisitive, like, what are you saying? But what she was speaking, that this is going to be beautiful, that they're going to love it. And as a little girl seeing that, I didn't understand how powerful that would be in my life, to see an entrepreneur speak and affirm what would be, and also having that level of detail. I think what was happening subtly is that it was refining who I was going to become. But if you would have asked me, I would have said my grandmother loved sewing. I didn't know that she was an entrepreneur. I didn't know that she was defying working in the cotton fields, defying working in factories in Mississippi. All of that, what she created as an entrepreneur was an act of defiance of what she was not going to be. She wanted to use her talents that her mother passed down to her. Her mother passed when she was 12 years old. And one of the things that was left behind was a sewing machine. But my grandmother at that time sewed from a place of survival for her siblings and her, and then for her children. But what she also was very clear of is that she didn't want to go back to the cotton fields. She remembered as a young girl how hard that was and how unfair it was as well. And it continues to be an act of defiance. And I see that being able to be fortunate to see someone be able to rise into their gifts, it was just transformative for me. I tell her all the time, she's 87, just experienced her 87th birthday, that I'm so proud of her. And I always say, did you know you're an entrepreneur? She's like, nah, I don't know none of these words y'all talking about. All I know is that I worked really hard and that I wanted to do my very best at what I did.
I love that story. I know that we, especially nowadays, are a little bit more disconnected sometimes from our grandparents, but there's a lot of wisdom to be had in those conversations. And I know that your parents also set an example of financial planning and budgeting that you've been able to bring into your entrepreneurial journey. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if they would use the words financial planning or financial budgeting, but if my mother was living, she would always say, and my father, who is still living, you never take more than what you can pay for. They taught us to always live just a little bit below our means so that we could have something in reserve. But all the financial literacy that's out there in the world, they didn't use any of those words. It was just very simple, everyday, tangible examples of do not take more than you can pay back, and be clear on the things that you want in life. Why do you want them? That you don't have to keep up, and what we hear so much in our community, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses. Owning a home was also very important to my parents. They wanted to make sure that they had a home that they can pass down. That is one of the things that my dad is so proud of now. He's so proud that the home that they have, my family home, is paid for. And what he says, and y'all don't sell the home. I don't care what happens in life. When I pass away, this is y'all's home, but this is also a part of my legacy. And so these are the things that I learned from my parents. And as an adult woman now who's been able to have different ventures, I've kept that same mentality. I always live just a little bit below my means. I don't take on more than what I can handle financially. And I'm always clear that if I'm pursuing things in life, it's because I want it, not because I'm trying to keep up with someone else. And so I love what I got from them is just to be very principled in everything that I did. And my parents were young when they had us. My mom was 20 when she had me. My dad was 19, if my numbers are correct. But these were young parents. And everything that they were learning is some of the things they took from their own household, but they were also dreaming of a different existence for their children. So I see them and I tell my dad, just like I tell my grandma, I'm so proud of you. Like for you and my mom to say, I want my children to be college educated. I want my children to be very principled. I want my children to be close. I want my children to have a level of independence of thought, independence of existence. And they work very, very hard so we can be independent, free-thinking people.
I find it amazing that our parents were able to really instill such wonderful lessons and wisdom in us when, in fact, they were babies when they had us.
They were absolute babies. I have no idea how they did it. I'm in complete awe that a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old knew how to take care of children and all the sacrifices that they made so that my siblings and I could have the life that we have. I can imagine that their lives would have been completely different, had they not been parents young, but they chose us and they kept choosing us time and time and time again. My father wanted to be an engineer, but one of his greatest prides of his life is being our dad. And so I see the sacrifices. I see how hard they worked. I also see the times that they were also just young. And so when we're so upset with our parents for not doing exactly what we wanted them to do, they were just young people striving their best to figure it out.
Definitely. And so you got some great lessons instilled in you growing up, a beautiful foundation, roots as we call it, and you decided to go to college in Mississippi as well. Tell me about that part.
Yeah, I went to Tougaloo College. It's still one of the greatest decisions of my life. And I wasn't on a trajectory to go to an HBCU. I'm one of the first people on my mother's side to go to college, so I didn't have a lot in my family tree to learn from. But there are things like a different world that open my worldview. It's like, whatever that is, I want that. But my mom's friend, Monique Sneed, she went to Tougaloo College and she and my mom worked together. Monique Sneed was in HR and she was telling my mom, because she saw me always reading books. She's like, this kid's different. She needs to go to HBCU. She needs to go to Tougaloo. And so I credit Monique Sneed for introducing Tougaloo to me. Small, intimate academic school right outside or inside of Jackson, Tougaloo, Mississippi. I'd never seen anything like Tougaloo in my life. It was my first experience seeing how high-achieving, brilliant folks that looked just like me, who dared to tell us that we were giants amongst men. There is a level of, when you go to an HBCU, a level of pride that's instilled into you and that your existence is always good enough, that your existence is your superpower. It just expanded me. I sit now on the board of trustees for Tougaloo, and it's one of the greatest honors of my life. And as I go out into the world and I'm striving to be a successful Black woman, and in so many ways that I am, I work as hard for my family's legacy, but I also work as hard for Tougaloo's legacy. Because when people say, where'd you go to school? I get to proudly say I went to Tougaloo. And so when people start thinking about Tougaloo, They look at, oh, this the woman that wrote that book. They see that a part of Tougaloo's fabric. That is one of the gifts of being Black. We know that our experiences are not just ours, that we walk into rooms, that we achieve things, that we defy things. And every time we do that, we add a layer to who we are as a people in every single thing that's attached to us. So I take a great sense of pride of being a Tougaloo graduate. And everywhere I go, I shout that if it's upon your destiny to go to an HBCU, do it. If it is upon your divine destiny, it will change the trajectory of your human experience.
That is a testament for sure. When I was at Morehouse, I decided that I wanted to see as many HBCUs as possible. And so I made it my mission to just basically touch the campus of as many HBCUs that I could get to. And I didn't quite make it into the hundreds, but I did get to 20 or 30, and Tougaloo was one of them.
Wow.
Because I had a best friend that attended Jackson State. And so I was able to get over to Mississippi and visit both campuses, as well as get down to Xavier and some others. And I agree that in that transitional moment between high school and complete adulthood and being responsible for yourself, that is a very good, nurturing, and transitional environment that will allow your best gifts to come out and to excel. And so many of my guests are from HBCUs. And I also love the fact that you are giving back, which is a part of your entire mission as well, to the university by being on the board of trustees. And that's an important part of how we must do business, as well as understanding that there is a returning stage.
May I add something there? For all alums of HBCUs, we give back with our time, talents, and our finances. And I think it has to be that three-tiered approach if we want our HBCUs to outlive us and for the next generation to be able to have an experience similar to ours, but even better. We have to give our time, our gifts, and our talents to our HBCUs.
Got to write that check.
Yes,
got to write that check. So when you graduated, you decided to stay in Mississippi for a little while and entered the teaching profession, which I'm familiar with as well. Tell me about that experience and how it shaped your philosophy and your trajectory.
Yes, I remember being a little girl and knowing that I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a writer as well. But it meant a great deal to me. The only place that I applied to was my father's high school. So that probably tells you a lot with how the type of impact that my dad has had in my life. But I wanted to teach at Madison Shannon Palmer High School. When my dad was there, it was Quitman County High School. And as soon as I graduated from Tougaloo, I knew that I was going to go to grad school at Ole Miss, but I knew that I was going to teach. Those first 3 or 4 years teaching at Madison Shannon Palmer were some of the best years of my life. I was 22 years old teaching seniors English, and I had to pretend that I was older. And, you know, it was so interesting at that time, I was pretending that I was 30 because that was such a big age. I was like, I'm 30 years old, you know? And I know the kids, they were like, yeah, right. Because I look very similar to them, with many of them being 17 and 18. But they taught me how to love in a way outside of your family. I was so attached to the outcomes of their life. I knew that it's the same principle way that I am in every other thing. I was the same way in education. I knew that it was my service, not just to teach kids English, but to teach them to dream of a life outside of the Mississippi Delta, but also have a commitment that when they reach their highest selves, to come back to give to the Delta. But I would often ask my students, who is the Toni Morrison in our classroom? Who is the James Baldwin in our classroom? Who's the Steve Harvey in our classroom? And I would just go down a list of all the great people that they were looking up to. And I would tell them that many of the people that you all look up to came from a little small town, just like you did, in Marks, Mississippi, Lambert, Mississippi, Sledge, Mississippi, these places that so many people never heard of. But you have the capacity as a young person to be that giant in your community. I was always pushing them to learn to be high achievers, but to equally be big dreamers. because I think the gift of imagination is the gift that we all have to start seeing something beyond our existence. And so my time teaching, it just expanded me. It prepared me for where I am now. It prepared me to give my heart and soul to something. Every single day I went to the classroom, I just wanted to be the best teacher. I gave it all that I had. And so many of my students have gone on and have done, and they're doing such high achieving things. But when they got their doctorates, I was sitting in the room. When many of them were the first time graduates of college, I was sitting in the audience. When they were setting up their dorm rooms for the first time, I was there helping them set up their dorm rooms. So they became extensions of my family. And when they've gone through the hard moments of losing people that they love, I've been one of those sobering voices. So what I'm sharing with you, that is much more than a classroom experience. We became a little small family, and I always held that as an honor. And so I lift educators, those that really love the profession. I lift educators so high. If you do it right, you can be a part of really shifting someone's trajectory of their life. You can be a part of giving them love and seeing them when so many young people just need someone to see them. If you can have a teacher or a church member or a coach to see you, then they can help pull the potential out of you. I took and I still take those things very, very seriously. So all the love to all the teachers out there who are doing it for the right reason, who love young people, who love them as they are today, but also love the potential of who they're going to be.
I used to always say that if you were doing it right, you were learning just as much as you were teaching.
Yes.
And I had a conversation with Bakari Sellers once, and he said, you always remember that one teacher that changed your life. And I'm pretty sure there are several students from Mississippi that remember you quite well.
They thank me all the time. I randomly get messages on Facebook. I'm forever Miss Hallmon to them. And they're always just beyond proud of the things that I've been able to do, but also have shared that in some of their tough moments and when, they've had experiences, especially when they were young, that I was a teacher that always loved them. And so it's a time in my life that I will always cherish. It was a time in my life that I know it was upon my destiny to be an educator for the time that I was.
Everything has a season,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly you lived into that season of your life quite well. And I think it was around this time that you learned of a diagnosis with your mom
Mm-hmm.
that probably shaped you as well, and then maybe even motivated you in your transition to Atlanta. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my mother, it took a while for her to be diagnosed with lupus. For a long time, the doctors really couldn't figure out what autoimmune disease she had. But from a child's view, what I remember is that she was tired a lot and in a lot of pain. My mom was a very hardworking, firm, little 5'3" woman, but had, to me, the strength of thousands. So to see her sleeping more, to see her limping in pain, to see her joints swollen, that was very hard. It was very hard to process, especially in a time, when a lot of the care, medical care in Mississippi was not there, not the type of care as a Black woman that she needed. Often Black women's pain is ignored. And so my mother was left untreated for quite some time. I think at first they thought it was rheumatoid arthritis, but they just wasn't sure. And so while going through these experiences, she was still working at Batesville Casket Company. Some of my toughest experience is having to walk outside and help my mother walk into the house because she was in that much pain. However, she could not get disability. I can't remember how old I was, but I was a young adult. But I had to write a letter, I believe to a Congress member. It's been so long now. But I remember writing a letter pleading that my mother could be on disability. And I wrote a strong case, but that's after years of being denied. Monique would tell me that, that's my mother's friend, she would tell me that there are moments when my mother would be in the bathroom at work trying to soothe her joints. Because if you're working on a line all day, that is just hard on the body. But she couldn't get disability, so she had to work. And we couldn't figure out, like, what does it take to get disability if this doesn't? So she said, I heard that you can write something, help me figure out how I can get it. And so I leaned into my Tougaloo community and I asked my good friend Liz, I was like, have you ever heard of people like contending that you can get disability? And she's like, I haven't, but let me tell you what you need to do. Start writing these letters. And I got busy, wrote letters, got it out to let my friends proofread it. And I guess it landed on the desk of somebody who actually took time to listen and read it with compassion. I got a response probably 3 weeks after I sent the letter out. And I remember my mother was not an emotional person at all. She has Mississippi strength. So it's rare to see her even break a tear. But for one of the first times in her life, she felt seen when she got the letter saying that she was going to get back pay, but she was finally going to be placed on disability. But I had to fight for that. And her body had to be sacrificed for so long to get the medical attention and the dignity that she deserved. A lot of things that I've continued to learn is that so much of our dignity is lost when we're on the other end of a person that does not see the dignity in you. When they push you to keep going to work, when they tell you that your pain is not real, that the medical care is not there to do the work, to send your labs off, to go deeper into a person's lived experience of what's going on in their body. She wasn't afforded any of that. I spent a lot of time also advocating and fighting for Black women's pain, because while my mother is no longer living, that pain still lives with me in such a way to know that never get comfortable, never stop fighting, and also listen to people when they say that they're hurting.
It's generational trauma.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
and it's a travesty that we have to go through what we do and take the steps that we have to take in order to just get what we deserve.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I'm amazed that we can even become entrepreneurs or business owners with all the additional hurdles we have to overcome and baggage we bring with us from even not just our own lives, but our parents' lives and our grandparents' lives. And you talk a lot about that in the book as well, making sure that you are advocating for the well-being of yourself as well as your loved ones and your employees and things of that nature. And so I'm glad that you were able to get that solution for her, but I'm not happy that it took so much effort and so much delayed time in order to achieve that result. So what led you to coming to Atlanta and changing your environment and taking a new risk in life?
Yeah, I was actually on the pursuit of figuring out where I wanted to go after I graduated from Ole Miss, from grad school there. At that time, I wanted to get a doctorate in Africana Studies, and I heard that Clark had a really good program. So that's what led me to come to Atlanta. But when I got here, I think the low-hanging fruit for me was going over to see Clark's campus, to see the AUC for the first time. But at the same time, when I visited the National African American Arts Festival, I may be messing the title up of the name, but the art festival was going on at the Underground. And I don't know how I stumbled upon that, but I did. And me walking around and seeing so many gifted artists, sculptors, painters, I was mesmerized. And I was like, whatever this is, I'm supposed to be here. Whatever Atlanta is, I'm supposed to have this experience. And so I waited maybe a year or two before I officially moved to Atlanta, but it was a deposit into my spirit to come to Atlanta. I was changed. The things that I wanted changed. The things that I believed changed. Because we all know that you have to see it to believe it. Me experiencing Atlanta on that trip, I remember telling my mom, I was like, I think I'm supposed to move to Atlanta. And she said, I really heard great things about it. I was like, no, I think I'm supposed to be there. And I got her to visit Atlanta with me. And she was like, oh, you're supposed to be in this place. But at that time, I was also very afraid of moving from Mississippi, moving from her, my dad, and my sister and brother. But she was like, absolutely not. You're very special. And I don't know what you or who you're going to become, but whoever you're supposed to be, Atlanta is a part of that. And she was very clear, very firm with it. So she didn't give me like that loving advice. It was very direct. You must move to Atlanta. This is upon your destiny to be there. And so I finally made the leap. I was actually living in Jackson, Mississippi before I moved to Atlanta. And I started to look for jobs in education because I was still teaching, and landed a big interview in Cobb County at South Cobb High School. And Dr. Hosey was the principal at that time there. I finally got a phone call that, that I was going to be offered a position. And then probably within a day or two, Dr. Hosey had to call me back and had to rescind the position because another teacher with more seniority wanted to move to South Cobb and be in the English department. But, I write about this moment in the book, that we have these serendipitous moments in life. Dr. Hosey was delivering the bad news to me. And he said, now, if by any chance you have a special education certification, I can offer you a job. What was so profound about that is that while I was in Jackson, a teacher who really served as a mentor for me encouraged me to get this second certification. And I was, of course, being young and hard-headed, but I went ahead and did it. And if I didn't listen to Miss Etheridge to get that certification, I would have had to tell Dr. Hosey that I didn't have it. But I do think that you have these moments in life where people are really thrusting you to your purpose, and you just don't know that they're there to assist you. Miss Etheridge was there to assist me to get the certification because I would need it. Dr. Hosey had to be the first place that I worked when I moved to Georgia because he's now such a great friend and will probably always be a mentor to me. Dr. Hosey had to be my first professional experience in Georgia because me teaching at South Cobb and getting a job at the Georgia Department of Education largely happened because of the potential he saw in me. So all these domino effects led me to Atlanta. And I think the lesson of not just the move, the lesson is that we always have these people. They always pop up in these subtle ways, and they're always got their hands on our back, pushing us, pushing us, pushing us. And there's always people right in front of us guiding us. That if we are open and understand and really be able to reflect on our big moments of life when these big transformational things happen, there was always someone there assisting us. So when I say my big move to Atlanta happened, it happened because of Miss Etheridge. It happened because of my mom. It happened because of Dr. Hosey. But it largely happened because so much of my purpose would be revealed when I moved to this city.
Yes. And in your book, you talk a lot about alignment.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. And I appreciated how you called out your willingness to listen to being in alignment with the universe and embracing it and not really having fear. But also you talked about not having expectations of the moment, right? So just doing it because you are in alignment, it is an opportunity, but allowing what's supposed to come out of it to come to you instead of having an expectation of a result. And I think that's a beautiful way to approach life and will really allow you to have a more, it seems like you're taking your hand off the steering wheel, but in fact, I think you are actually being more proactive in the opportunities that can come your way.
Absolutely. It does appear that you're saying, I surrender all, I'm taking my hand off the steering wheel. But I think when we live our life of divine alignment, it's less about driving the car and understanding the maps, that you're always going to go in the direction that you're meant to go in. That's if we allow alignment to be what it is. I had to be obedient. To be in alignment takes a level of obedience in life. I had to listen to Miss E. I had to listen to my mother. But beyond listening to them, I then had to do something. The action is also a part of alignment. It doesn't mean that I live my life without fear. I think we all always have a level of fear, trepidation, but I still do things even if I'm afraid, even if I can't see the clear picture. When I moved to Atlanta, I didn't know a lot of people. I'm very close to my family, so that was a big cultural shock for me as well. It was almost me unplugging a major part of my extension cord. So much of my identity was tied to Mississippi as well. But I think we're often afraid to leave places because our identity is tied to it, rather than seeing that once we move, our identity still comes. We just get to open ourselves, blossom even more. What has helped me the most, even when I transitioned from education and becoming an entrepreneur, the thing that has grounded me the most is that I'm a very spiritual person. That it's less about me driving a business to success and me choosing and wanting to live in the highest vibration of my experience, of me wanting to live a life of profound dignity and purpose. Because I spend more time pouring into that cup, it allows me to be a strong steward and have strong business acumen. But I am here because I want to be a high vibrational person.
After the break, Dr. Key is in alignment and following her divine path. Where will it lead her? I'm Troy Evans, and you're listening to Give 'em the Business. Give 'em the Business is sponsored by Oasis Vacations. Are you tired of vacation rentals that don't live up to the photos? We get it. That's why Vacation with Oasis is changing the game, offering luxury vacation homes in the world's most stunning destinations. No more surprises, no more letdowns. Just high-end, beautifully curated stays designed for comfort and unforgettable experiences. Whether it's Dubai, Costa Rica, Hawaii, or beyond, Oasis delivers next-level hospitality, premium amenities, and a seamless booking experience. Visit vacationwithoasis.com and upgrade your next getaway. We're talking with Dr. LaKeysha Hallmon, founder of The Village Retail. Dr. Key had transitioned to Atlanta but remained in education. She, however, was not destined to stay in the classroom. She, in fact, had a higher calling.
I was in education, I believe, for 9 years. And I will tell you, entrepreneurship is not something that I was pursuing. I had no idea that I would be an entrepreneur. But in my time, when I transitioned from the classroom, I worked at the Georgia Department of Education. And I became very curious about the economic disparities that I was seeing even in education. And it took me down this road of wanting to understand poverty and wanting to understand economic mobility. Like, what could we do to make our communities economically mobile? And one of the things that I kept reading about was entrepreneurship, creating small businesses. But I also knew that something that Dr. Martin Luther King said is that the collective is always more powerful than the individual. So it wasn't about creating more entrepreneurs, one singular small business. It's creating this in a village model where the construct is built on collective wealth building. So that took a different lens. But I was contending with being the educator I was in these ideas and these visions that kept coming to my mind. And so my very first company, The Village Market, was really built to create this collective experience of Black entrepreneurship. It's also this collective experience that the community was bound to the existence of these businesses. And these businesses were bound to the existence of the consumers, the shoppers. I created support as a verb to put a charge in the community that if we want to be economically mobile, if we want economic liberation, that we have to start being intentional with where and how we spend our money. And that for me, that we must start to steward those dollars to our Black businesses. I took a framework and put a 21st century spin on it, because I'm not the first person that say we need to buy Black and it has to be consistent. It needs to be part of our lifestyle. I'm not the first person to talk about collective economics. But in my way, in my Mississippi accent, my vision of doing it, it came out in a way that people were like, oh, I like this. This feels fresh. This feels like I'm a part of something that's fighting back, that's doing something. So I created the Village Market. The vision of Village Market happened in 2015, and I was still working my full-time job. I launched the Village Market April 2016, and I launched it as a marketplace, a nighttime experience. And so when you think of authors, candle companies, apparel companies, up-and-coming restaurateurs, I created this marketplace to be this beautiful well-curated nighttime experience that you got dressed up, you got cute for. But what was paired to that ticket that you purchased was support as a verb. That when you come to this market, you're here to do something. I put a collective spending goal for the community. I think for my very first market, I was like, we're going to spend $30,000 tonight on Black businesses. By the time that Village Market kept going, I had like, no, we're going to spend like $250,000 and so on and so forth. But me putting that charge, that thing to do in the community, when people think of Village Market, they think of action. If we want our communities to thrive, if we want our HBCUs to exist, if we want economic mobility to happen, we have to be very intentional with what we do with our actions. And so for me, the Village Market was all about funneling our dollars to Black enterprises. But at the end of that, Black enterprises, Black entrepreneurs, Black small business owners understand that there's a collective wealth building model that we're building. We're not funneling dollars to you just so you can be a single-minded multimillionaire, because it does nothing for our community to rebuild constructs of individualism. So I was trying to get into the mindset of the entrepreneur that when you reach your pinnacle, when you're a sustained, high enterprising company, what is your social impact focus? What type of employer will you be? How will you make sure that all the good that has come to you recycle back into community? What good will you do with the good that has been bestowed to you? And also, how will you lift as you climb? Because that has been the construct of the Village Market, people come to us differently. We exist for a different reason. And we've been able to circulate $8.8 million in direct sales. But these are people like you and I who say that we're not going to buy Black from a place of reaction. We're going to buy Black as a part of our lifestyle. It's just what we do. I am a big, big advocate of us buying Black in just what we do, making it a lifestyle, not always as an act of protest, but the act of our human existence, that when we spend our dollars with each other.
So, absolutely love support as a verb.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been the title of your book.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
But I wholeheartedly agree with your philosophy and approach to the Village Marketplace. And one of the things that over the years I've struggled with is to help individuals understand that, like you said, it doesn't have to be in a moment of protest. It doesn't have to be during the Montgomery bus boycott. It doesn't have to be when we're referred to as jelly beans in the boardroom. It doesn't have to be just during George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor or what have you. It needs to be every single day in the choices that we make and how we vote with our dollar.
Yes.
Because it will only come back to us and improve the communities that we live in. The thing that I really enjoy about your approach is it's one thing to just say, this is what you should do as a consumer or as a business owner, but specifically as a business owner, when you don't have that generational knowledge that's been passed down to you, okay, you need to do this, but let me support you in that effort. Let me show you how to scale up or to market or to reach the consumers that you need to. So it was also a service that you were providing to your vendors. Tell me more about that approach and philosophy.
Yes, I launched my nonprofit, Our Village United, because, again, I'm a natural researcher. So I read about things and I read about these problems, but I read about them and I don't become despondent. I read about them and I say, well, we can do something about this. If there's a financial literacy gap, if there's a scalability gap in our communities, if more Black businesses need more mentors, then it's less time about what we don't have and more time about let us just create what we need. And so I launched Our Village United to make sure that entrepreneurs had the incubation that they needed, the community in a cohort style. And so I bring in people like you who with much business experience to lead classes. I bring in large corporations like MasterCard, partner with these people to teach supplier diversity and things like that. But my goal was I will have a retail store that you can come and shop from. But the businesses, beyond needing consumers, we also need the access to the knowledge. There's a knowledge gap, and you experience it as you grow, you hit another ceiling. It's like, now this is unfamiliar. I don't know where to go because I've done all the things that I can do at this level. My goal is that every time an entrepreneur reaches a ceiling, that there are people there waiting to pull you to the next thing. So I built our Village United to work with entrepreneurs. We've been able to scale nationally now. We have 4 different programs. Our Elevated Cities program, Get Procured program, Her Pro Bono, Elevate Mississippi, that is particular just for Mississippi-based businesses. And we also do pitch contests. So when entrepreneurs finish our programs, they get to pitch for capital injections. Our largest grant sizes we've done is up to $25,000, but we normally stay in that $10,000 to $15,000 range where we want to support entrepreneurs getting their inventory or help them with their back office. With our pro bono program, we're hiring the accountants, we're hiring the marketers, we're hiring the web developers, and these entrepreneurs get their websites developed, get their marketing plans developed at no cost to them. But there is a responsibility where it may not be a financial cost. There's a responsibility that when you reach a level that you must reach back. Each one teach one. And we talk about collective wealth building in all of our programmings. We also have a wellness competency through all our programs. So when entrepreneurs are experiencing burnout, decision fatigue, we have mental health practitioners that work directly with our Village United and all our businesses in those programs, because decision fatigue, burnout, imposter syndrome is something that as an entrepreneur you will feel. I want to ensure that we're taking a holistic approach of what entrepreneurship means, small business ownership means, because I want our enterprises to be sustainable. And I want us to be well, mind, body, and spirit, because I think that would make us better business owners. And not just better business owners, it makes us better people. We need better people leading companies. We need better people that reach a level of success and say, oh no, it's my responsibility to give back. So we pair and we've created, such a beautiful model that I'm so proud of. And also we have the physical retail store. As you see, I spend less time ideating and more time making sure that I built a solution. And it's work that we consistently refine. But what I would love for the listener to understand, I'm a person that did not have a vision of being an entrepreneur. I was very proud to be a teacher. But there are times in your life, if you're called to do something, if we answer that call, it will pull even more potential out of you. What I'm hoping for our community is that we start taking each other seriously, that we start to believe the people that we've been longing for and waiting for are right here in front of us, that every single relationship that we have with each other is actually an honor, that we're not just here to coexist in this lifetime. It is not by accident in 2025 that so many of us are joined together. What are we going to do with this level of joining? Will we just go to brunch, or will we decide that at brunch we're going to build a construct and a model that we can resist this time and build a better time? But what that requires is us to understand the level of unity consciousness that we exist in, that we're here bound together in time to actually do something. When I'm meeting with entrepreneurs and they come to the village, what really attracts them at first is because they just want to be successful. The greatest honor for me is that when we've been able to crack their consciousness open, to get them to see with a different eye, to say that, no, really, if you're successful, I'm successful. If I'm successful, you're successful. That is the level of unity consciousness that I believe that we need to exist in and strive to possess in our inner being.
And, you don't want to reach a certain level of financial prosperity and be the only one there.
Right.
Like, it's not fun if you can't share it with your loved ones and your community. And, I was fortunate to have several entrepreneurs, male entrepreneurs in my life growing up that led by example But I also noticed that they were the example for the entire neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone needed them because they were few and far between. So you need to make sure, as you stated, that you're bringing people along with you. And it was funny. I can't remember the name of the show exactly, but one that Kenya Barris did on Netflix, and it was something like Black AF or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But every single episode was titled "Because of Slavery" or "This too is because of slavery." Or this, and so I never blame, because I'm like, we got a lot of things we're trying to overcome.
Yeah.
But one of the things, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, one of the things that I'm trying to figure out how to overcome as a community is there's one thing that we definitely need to spend Black, which we 100% do. But sometimes it's not in the budget, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't afford to necessarily support with your wallet, but we keep things a secret too, right? We don't say you should go down to Village Retail and purchase from there. Or we don't say, oh, you're looking for a graphic designer? I know, we don't share, we keep it a secret. And that too is probably because of slavery to some degree. But what are your thoughts on how we can not only address the support aspect in terms of dollars, but in terms of recommendations and constructive feedback and things of that nature?
Yes, actually, really, really great point. We do hoard things. If we got a good photographer, you don't want nobody else to have that photographer because you want your pictures to be the best. You know what? I honestly think it takes hearing somebody say it. Like, stop hoarding. Stop keeping these gifts and gems of our community a secret, that you may not have the financial capital to spend that 10%, 15% monthly on a Black business, but can you refer them out? Can you put them on your social? And so I think how we do that is arming the community to see that that is an act of agency. There's an act of owning the people and saying that this person is a part of me, that I'm advocating for them, because I believe that most people want to be a part of change. They want to be a part of the thing that really defied the opposite of it. And so if we arm people that by you writing a review, you sharing this business, when people come into town and say, oh, you're tagging them and say, you have to go by Village Retail, that is an act of advocacy. And so it's less about being passive in moments, but more about being active participants of our community. But all of this takes a choice. We have to be willing to be these people. Let's talk less theorizing about it and actually doing it. And I don't think it's that hard, but we have to confront our things. We have to be very honest with ourselves. And I think everything can be linked back to post-traumatic slave syndrome. Shout out to Dr. Joy. But I think everything can be linked back to that, with why we act the way that we act. But I also know that for our communities to be elevated, then we have to choose in this human experience to be different. And so that is saying every single person that you make a pledge that in my existence, in my human existence, I won't hoard, that I will propel people, that I will share, that I will advocate, that while I may not have my 10% this month, when I do my holiday shopping, I'll make sure that I'm going and patronizing Black businesses. All of this is the sum of our actions.
Agreed. And so when you launched the Village Marketplace, as tends to happen with entrepreneurs, it gets crazy. And for a lot of entrepreneurs recently, craziness was 2020 when the COVID pandemic hit, and it forced you, as all entrepreneurs have to do, to pivot. Tell me about the pivot and what lessons you learned and how you came out of that.
Yeah, it was a very tough moment. I mean, we went through a global pandemic. When we sit back and think about that, it's like, and we survived. But we went through a global pandemic, and I had to really sit with the future of my company, the Village Market. But it also gave me something else. While all things were falling apart, it gave me a moment to just stop. I needed a moment to pause, to recalibrate, to think about the future of what I was building. If I didn't have that moment, I don't know if I would open the Village Retail at Ponce City Market. If I didn't have that moment, I don't know if I would have launched Our Village United. And now, doing the work that we're doing. Because before the pandemic, the Village Retail didn't exist. Our Village United didn't exist. But that pivot opened these two new doors for me. I think sometimes with entrepreneurship, we go and go and go and go. We're responding to a thing rather than leading it. I bet so many people needed that big reset. It gave me time to rest, to be imaginative again. It gave me time to really reflect and think about when I opened the Village Retail or Our Village United, how do I want it to be different from Village Market? How do I want to be different? Because the areas of me that needed to evolve from the business owner that I was then and the business owner that I am now, I am just as tenacious as I used to be, but I'm much more obedient with taking care of myself. If that pivot didn't happen, I really do believe I would have burnt out. So what I strive to do, no matter what I'm met with in life, I ask myself, what is the gift of this moment? And when we're faced with things, it's so hard, especially challenging things. It's hard to understand that a gift is waiting in that moment because it's hard. But because I've trained my mind to look for the gift, that was the gift of Village Retail waiting for me. It was the gift of Our Village United waiting for me. It was the gift of No One is Self-Made book deal waiting for me. And so during a very, very challenging time, and for entrepreneurs, we will be met with other challenging times. The question is, what type of pivot will you have? Will you know that when you pivot, there is something far greater waiting for you on the other side? We have to train our minds to affirm that wherever we pivot, something better is waiting, and that I won't lose anything. I get to take all the great things into this new existence. And I also get to let some things go, because there were so many parts of that unhealthy entrepreneur that I needed to leave in 2020.
So you mentioned the book, No One is Self-Made, which just came out. And if you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching this podcast, buy the book, okay, and read it. Tell someone about the book so that they can read it and continue the process. But what brought you to wanting to write the book, and what do you hope people take away from it?
I've always wanted to be a writer. When you all get the book, I encourage everyone to read the acknowledgments. In the acknowledgments, you will learn a lot about the way that I think, who I am, and the way that I'm programmed. But in the opening of my acknowledgments, I acknowledge so many great writers that came before me. Some who have transitioned to the ancestral world and some who are living now. But I write about these people because growing up in Mississippi, I needed those books. I needed Toni Morrison. I needed Dr. Maya. I needed James Baldwin. I needed what they wrote about in the book to open my worldview of what was possible for me. The reason why I share that is because they're the reasons I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be able to lend my gift to pages, the wisdom, the experiences that I had. And I didn't know when I would write a book in life, but I knew that I would. I remember being 6 or 7 years old, signing my mother's Day card, your future author. Again, affirmations again, speaking things into existence. But this book deal came to me in a setting just like this. My friend, Dr. Joy, who is the founder of Therapy for Black Girls, she ran an off-cycle podcast series where she interviewed people who were not therapists. And so she called me up. She said, hey, I'm doing this 4-part series that I'm not going to interview therapists, but it's like a sisterhood in business, and I want to interview with you. And again, when you say yes to things, domino effect, divine alignment. I sat with Dr. Joy for that podcast. It did extremely well. But from that podcast, my future agent was listening. I didn't know this woman, didn't know that I had a future agent, but she was a listener. And from there, she reached out to Dr. Joy and said, do you really know her? Because this woman has books in her. Dr. Joy called me. She's like, hey, Rebecca, she's an agent. She wants to talk to you because she said you have books in you. And me being who I was, and Dr. Joy is my friend. So I was like, now, is that real? Is this one of them Instagram things where everybody a coach, everybody an agent? And we laughed about it. I didn't feel that I was ready because I was so in the heart of running the business and I was completely burnt out. But it came back to me again. And I remember telling Dr. Joy, I think I'm ready to meet with her. My first Zoom meeting with Rebecca, as soon as she popped on the screen, she was holding up a notebook from that podcast of pages of notes, and she started to flip it. She's like, whenever you're ready to write your book is already written. You are a writer. All the things that you were talking about in this podcast, it needs to be a book. And our relationship started from that moment. From there, Rebecca and I worked very hard to put a proposal together. And we shopped that proposal around and we got offers from just about everybody. And I was able to choose which publisher that I wanted to work with. I shared this experience less about the book deal, but more about the lessons. Again, life can be so serendipitous if we say yes to the right things. The only thing I had to do was say yes to Dr. Joy. I didn't have to go find an agent. I didn't have to write all the canned emails and hoping somebody responds. I didn't have to pitch myself. The only thing I had to do was be very present in that moment in Dr. Joy and to give that interview all that I had with no expectation other than just being myself. From there, the listener was my current agent now. And I am so honored to have landed a book deal, to be working with HarperCollins, Day Street Imprint. I'm so grateful for the opportunities that this book has given me. And I'm grateful that it came in the time in my life now. I was prepared to write this book now. I learned to love and got even more lessons to learn. But my experience as an educator shows up in this book. Me being able to observe my grandmothers showed up in this book. Me being loved by my parents shows up in this book. Me moving to Atlanta, experiencing Atlanta shows up in this book. And so I see and I share that it has been tear-jerking for my grandmothers to hardworking women who grew up deeply impoverished to see their names written in a book. If the purpose for me was to give them that, I don't have to sell any more books. Now I want to sell a lot more. But if the purpose was for them to see their names printed in a book when they had never imagined anything like that was possible when they were in the cotton fields. Sometimes our purposes is for us, and sometimes our purposes is to say thank you to the elders in our life and to let them know that every sacrifice that they made for us was not in vain. So this book is very much so a love letter for my belief for the community that we can actualize in this lifetime. But this book is also a thank you to every single person who has poured into me. People known and unknown, people that I've met and haven't met. I lifted their names in these pages because we must write into the people. When we get an opportunity, we must write the people into the pages.
And so if you're listening again, put it on your Juneteenth shopping list, put it on your Christmas shopping list, spread the word and support as we've been discussing on this podcast so far. What are you most excited about in the next 5 years, and what do you see happening with your business endeavors?
5 years from now, wow. I can't wait to see the woman that I am 5 years from now. I'm sure I have maybe 1 or 2 more strands of gray hair. I welcome that. I'm excited about the young men that one of my nephews would be a teenager in 5 years. One of my nephews would be in college graduating in 5 years. I can't wait to experience them. I can't wait to see my relationships mature in 5 years. Business-wise, I look forward to seeing how well the Village Retail has scaled. What new markets will we be in? Will we be in other cities? What locations will we have open? What ways will we have pivoted? What will our Village United be doing? Will we finally be in a policy world? Because that's where I'm pushing the organization to push and advocate for policy. I can't wait to see our community 5 years from now. I can't wait to see the results of our actions being personified 5 years from now. Will we be proud of what we did with this time? Or will we have regrets? I am believing 5 years from now that our lives will be changed because we chose to do something about this time. As motivated as I am by the future, I must tell you, though, it has helped me so much to also be in the present. And so what I can commit to, because these are the things that we can control, I'm going to commit to continue to doing my self-work. I'm going to commit to being a student of my business. I'm going to commit to being a steward of the things that I say. I'm going to commit to the continuous pursuit of evolution of my thoughts and my consciousness. I'm going to commit to taking care of my body and my spirit, to keeping God at the pinnacle of every single thing that I do. And when I do that, I know 5 years from now will be better than what it is today.
And when you think about the next generation of entrepreneurs, what would you say to them to give them the business?
That's good. Next generation of entrepreneurs, be committed to the work. Be committed to the process. Less about wanting to be like someone else, but do the journey of your own self-exploration and allow that self-exploration to show you why you're really here. Be a different type of business owner. Shake it up and strive to create a healthy work environment for other people. Strive to create a healthy work environment for yourself. And the greatest business is to keep learning, to keep evolving the way that you think, to refine your processes. That if you have to pivot, don't see it as failure, see it as opportunity. Let the opportunities continue to unfold and direct you in your right path. But one of the greatest principles to me of being a successful business owner is to be decent, treat people well, be honorable in your word, be honorable in your actions, be honorable in not just what people can see from the public, but also be honorable in private. We need different types of business owners now, no more of the same. I hope this next generation leads with a sense of consciousness that we would truly be elevated as a people because they pursued their gifts differently.
That's Dr. LaKeysha Hallmon, founder of The Village Retail. If you want to hear more about her story, make sure to read her book, No One is Self-Made. If you want to learn more about the Black entrepreneurs and business leaders who have made an impact, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on our YouTube channel at Give 'Em the Business. Also, make sure to follow us on social media at Give 'Em the Business Podcast. And if you want to send me a message, you can find me at I am Troy D. Evans. Give 'Em the Business is produced by Two Comma Media. Thanks for listening, and remember to Troy Hart.